Ancient China, the land of the Red Dragon, is commonly known for the Great Wall of China, one of the greatest man-made wonders of the world. Ancient China produced what was the oldest still existent cultures in the world. The name China comes from the Sanskrit word Sina, which was translated as seen by the Persians and seems to have become popularized through trade along the Silk Road from China to the rest of the world. The Romans and Greeks knew the country as Ceres, the land where silk comes from. Most of the history of the Chinese civilization, including the ancient period, has traditionally been divided into dynasties, lines of kings or emperors from a single family following each other on the throne from generation to generation. The early dynastic rulers of China are known as kings rather than emperors. It is only after the first emperor who reigned over a united China from 221 BCE that the imperial period of Chinese history began. World history has seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. Very few, some would say none, can compare for endurance, sophistication, and worldwide influence with the civilization which developed in China some 4,000 years ago and has continued in being ever since. China is a vast country with a huge range of terrains and climates. The country's sheer size, geographical features such as mountain ranges, deserts, and coastal lands have all helped shape Chinese civilization and history. Above all, the great river systems of China, notably the Yellow River to the north and the Yangtze to the south, have given Chinese civilization its distinctive character. Governing a huge country such as China posed several huge challenges, and it was a testament to the quality of the Imperial Chinese officials that they succeeded for so long. Throughout Chinese history, all states were ruled by monarchs, who were considered divinely sanctioned kings and rule a state covering only part of China. Beneath the emperor were four main social classes in ancient China. These four classes were nobles and officials, peasants, artisans and merchants, and the imperial family. The emperor and his family were at the top of the social scale in ancient China. Emperors believed that they were appointed by heaven and therefore did not need to obey humans. Once the emperor chose the son that he wanted to succeed him, the mother of the son would become the empress. During Han times, from 202 BCE to 220 CE, both the administrative structure of the centralized state and the success of Confucianism helped shape the Chinese family system and women's place in it. Much was written in Han times on the virtues women should cultivate. The biographies of exemplary women told the stories of women from China's past who had given their husbands good advice, sacrificed themselves when forced to choose between their fathers and husbands, or performed other heroic deeds. It also contained cautionary tales about scheming, jealous, and manipulative women who brought destruction to all around them. Another very influential book was written by Ban Zhao, a well-educated woman from a prominent family. Her admonitions for women urged girls to master the 7 virtues appropriate to women: humility, resignation, subservience, self-abasement, obedience, cleanliness, and industry. Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism were the 3 main philosophies and religions of ancient China, which have individually and collectively influenced ancient and modern Chinese society. Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism are considered the 3 pillars of ancient Chinese society. As philosophies and religions, they not only influenced spirituality, but also government, science, the arts, and social structure. Though their specific beliefs and teachings have occasionally been at odds with each other, there has been much room for overlap. Instead of one tradition taking over and pushing the others out, the three philosophies have influenced society alongside each other, changed each other, and at times blended together. Understanding the unique interplay between these three traditions gives great insight into Chinese society as well as modern times. Chinese architecture, specifically those found in the 18 historical provinces of China, are bounded by the Tibetan highlands on the west. Meanwhile, Chinese architecture, specifically those found in the 18 historical provinces of China, are bounded by the Tibetan highlands on the west, the Gobi to the north, and Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam to the southwest. Chinese built chiefly in timber, which is vulnerable to moisture, fire, insects, and the ravages of time. Very little ancient architecture has survived. The oldest datable timber building is the small main hall of Nanshan Temple on Mount Wutai in Shaanxi Province, built sometime before 782 CE. Brick and stone are used for defensive walls, the arch for the gates and bridges, and the vault for the tombs. Single-story architecture predominates throughout northern and much of eastern China, although multi-story buildings constructed around a central earthen mold date to the late Zhao dynasty, from 1046 BCE to 256 BCE. The decline and fall of the Chinese civilization was a result of population decrease, weak government, a frail economy, and invasion. A combination of these causes sparked the slow decline of this once great empire. The Han dynasty lasted until 220 CE, when it broke up into several successor states. Thus began a period of weakness for China, when no single dynasty was able to establish its rule over the whole country for several centuries. This opened the way for non-Chinese people from surrounding regions to establish their own states within China. It was a dark period in Chinese history. Society was disrupted, trade declined, and many cities shrank. But even in barbarian-occupied areas, administration staffed by Confucian-educated officials continued to govern. Chinese civilization was preserved intact. A few centuries later, new dynasties would once again rule the whole of China. Ancient Chinese culture before the Imperial era, from 221 BC, has obscure beginnings. Later invasions and contact with foreign cultures has colored Chinese culture, but the underlying forms established during the Shang and Zhao eras still appear in modern Chinese culture in everything from religion to traditions to dress to writing and characters. The vestiges and few traits of ancient culture continue in modern China. Archaeological discoveries show that by 1200 BC, the Shang were writing in pictograms that were somewhat similar to the characters used in Chinese writing today. The emphasis on writing and education was an important part of ancient culture, and this remains a key aspect of their culture today. Jade objects had religious significance, and this is an unusual tradition of ancient culture that many modern Chinese retain. They consider it to be quite an auspicious material, and many still wear it as an amulet, as you can observe in China today. During the Tang dynasty and afterwards, tea was a major export to the Tibetan Empire along the tea horse road, and it's still China's most popular natural health beverage. Silk weaving and the preference for silk is another cultural tradition that continues in modern times. Mainland Chinese produce more than half of the world's silk. Most Chinese might also worship at shrines of historical figures. Perhaps half of all Chinese still worship small idols representing dead historical figures such as successful generals. They place them in their houses and places of business. Even in modern times, the building of mega construction projects, such as the Three Gorges Dam, the biggest and most expensive dam project in the world, is inspired by this tradition. One thing is almost certain: A century from now, China will still be a place of fascination for those who live there and those who live with it, and its rich history will continue to inform its present and future direction.